All right, we're recording now. We're recording now. Don't worry. I know you got so entrenched in the conversation. It's so easy to do. My NPR voice just pulls you in, right? All like, yes, Kara.
Potentially not relevant, but I noticed that the bins of the GPAs, the higher end and the lower end of neighboring bins are the same, and that seems strange to me. I want it to be 1.35 and then 1.36 at the next one.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yep. So what you mean is the higher end on each bin matches the lower end on the next bin, right?
Yeah, and that somehow seems like an odd thing to me.
It is. Okay. It is, but when I said it out loud, did you hear what I said? GPA of between 1.06 and 1.34, 1.35 and 1.64. That's because I know that's what that means. You kind of have to make an histogram to figure out what the distributions really mean. But typically, it's cut off right before this number. And this number on the right is where it starts on the next category. It is a very frustrating part of Excel. I will tell you that. So be aware of it though. Be aware of it though. When y'all get out and y'all play with the data for this week, as well as in-class demonstration data that's already out on Canvas, play with it and figure it out, right? You'll be able to easily kind of create the histogram and then go and select or do a count, select it so you can count the number of GPAs between 1.35 and 1.64, right? Good point though. Yeah. I said it, but I didn't explicitly say, y'all realize I'm saying not the same thing that's on your screen, right? Cool. All right. Okay, stacked bar charts. Stacked bar charts are pretty effective.
Laura Beth had a question.
Oh, Laura Beth, sorry.
It's okay. So just curious if that binning technique is like a built-in Excel function, because we used a tool called SIP Math. It was an add-in to do bins in a class, and I can't tell you what that tool did. I'd have to go look at my notes. Just kind of ballpark, is that something that we're going to be doing with Excel's core functions, or are we going to be using an add-in for that too?
No, this is going to be a chart function. So here we go. Here's our data for tonight, right? This is our example data, right? Highlight. Go ahead and do it now. Insert chart, histogram, right? Boom. Okay.
So
right click,
just
format axis. Oh, sorry. Right click, format axis, then width, 0.25. There it changes. You see that? Laura?
Where did you get the 0.25 from?
I typed it right here. Laura Beth, you're frozen. I don't know if everybody else is. Kara's not. Sorry, smile. Okay, Leah. I think we may have lost Laura Beth for a sec. She'll be back. Go ahead, Leah.
Oh, I didn't need to say anything. I was just looking at the 2.5.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah. So you see that there, right? So 1.7 and 1.98. I can come home, sort smallest to largest. Get rid of that. Insert it again, because when you sort, sometimes it'll mess things up. All right, there we go. 0.25.
So basically, all I have to know is how to get to whichever chart I want, and it'll input all the data for me.
What'd you say, Leah?
I said, so basically, I just have to know the chart that I want to use, and once I figure that out, it'll input all the data for me.
Yeah, So not input all the data, but in some charts, all you have to do is select the column, and it will create the it'll create the chart for you. So under insert, I went to histogram, and then I hit histogram. So here we've got 1.7 to 1.98. It says, what is that, like 1 maybe? Maybe 2. We can format the data series. Actually, I'm sorry, insert, design, oops, my bad, data labels. There they are. So it says we have 3. Can y'all see that now?
Yes, way better.
Yeah, so we have 3 values in this first bin, right? 1.77 to 1.98. Something may be going on, but I'll double. I see it now. We have some missing data. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. I knew I threw in some fun stuff. So Laura Beth is back. Welcome back.
Thank you. I dropped out right after I asked my question, but I'll review the recording.
Okay, no, you didn't miss much. Trying to.
And are you going to give us a width, or where did you find the width?
Are you talking about the data itself, Rosane?
Yes, the 0.25. I was wondering where you got it from. Like,
oh, I just made it up.
You made it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't want to do the homework and think that was like a part of the formula and throw it in there.
Yeah. So here's our histogram. Here's our histogram. I'm going to format the axis, and I'm just going to say, you know what? I don't want 34 bins. That's 34 categories, right? Let's just do 5. Let's just do 5. So now we've got 5 equally distributed bins based on the range of values. Okay. So if you take our values of GPA, they run from 1.06 to 4.0. That makes sense, right? GPAs go from 0 to 4.0, right? So what it's done is it's created 5 evenly spaced ranges based on the GPA value, and it's going to tell you how many GPAs are in each of those categories. So I'm going to click on the blue bars, and go to add chart element and do data labels on the outside end, okay? So it says we have 5 GPAs between 1.06 and 1.65. 1.06 to 1.65, okay? Remember, the distribution of the bin, or the labels of the bins themselves, right? 1.06 to 1.65, that's based on the distribution of GPA itself. It's not based on how many GPAs are in that category. It's just saying if we're going to have 5 equidistant GPA categories, this is the first one, right? It's about 0.6 points, right? This one is about 0.6 points. This one's about 0.6 points. Do you see that now? I don't know if y'all can read it. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Is that better? So you see, when we create bins in the histogram, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, Excel, our minimum to our maximum, right? We're gonna create these separate bins, and we want them to be equidistant from each other, about 0.6 GPA points. How many GPAs actually fall in that range can be very different. I mean, look at it, from 3.41 to 4.0, that's 3,900 students, right? 3,900 students. So notice again, to Kira's point, Kira, come back to what you said, how many GPAs are between 1.06 and 1.65, there it is. 1.06 to 1.60, which is less than 1.65. Make sense?
If there was a GPA of 1.65, it would not count in the first bin.
Well, let's try to find a GPA of 2.24. Let's try to find a GPA of 2.24, since that's probably more likely. We do have it. Okay, good. So we do have 2.24. So let's go from 1.77 to 2.24. Okay, so this one is 64. And look at that, it says 60. So we've proven me wrong now, thankfully. I hate to be right. It actually can cut across. It can actually cut across with regards to this type of distribution. And I'm making the assumption that the reason why is because, again, it's trying to create these evenly spaced bins. And the only way to really do that is to have values on either side sometimes. If we do something more straightforward, like 0.2, may not let us do that. There we go, 0.3. Let's say 2.26, 1.96 to 2.26. That's just 54. And that's just 51. So guess what? It's really frustrating.
It just means that top number in any bin isn't counted in that bin. It's the bottom number to just before the top number.
That's right. It's the bottom number is what's really driving it.
Okay.
But again, how would you create, the main point here to also think about is how would we create column charts with GPA? Let's do it. Let's just see what it looks like. It doesn't. It doesn't work. This is all continuous data. It does not work. You have to group these into certain things like 3.5 to 3.99, 4.0 only, 3.01 to 3.49, right? I mean, that's the only way to really play around with bar charts with continuous data. Is you have to create the groups or the bins yourself. Now, okay. I'll be honest with you, I don't use histograms that much, but they're effective when you need them. Is it okay to move on to bar charts, stacked bar charts? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So this is comparing males versus females at two different institutions, right? So you can very easily see at institution 1, there are about 2,500 females, and you kind of have to do a little bit of mental math, maybe 1,500 or so males, right? The other institution has roughly almost half and half. Not really, more females than males. But the good thing about stacked bar charts, y'all, is that stacked bar charts allow us to see the total, allow us to know that there's 4,000 students at this institution, right? Because remember, we're telling two different stories here. How many students are in the institution and what's the size of this category or set of categories, right? Males, females, and the overall total population. This is called a simple stacked bar chart. We can also, I forgot about this part, yeah. I don't like random color. I'd rather simplify it and include labels if necessary, just part of my preference. But then we have what's called the 100% stacked bar chart. What the 100% stacked bar chart does is it's always going to be equivalent to 100%. The differences in the shape and the sizes of the bars themselves is the proportionality of the populations that you're examining. So remember, yeah, there it is on the left. Over here, we saw that this one has about 4,000 students. This one has about 2,000 students. And we can kind of sort of see the proportional differences between males and females in both. This one focuses only on the proportional differences between males and females. It would be very difficult. We would have to sit here and add these whole numbers to figure out what the total population in the institution was, right? But rather, we can see that there's not much difference between male and female distribution at both colleges. So I say all that to say, depending on the question you're trying to answer or the story you're trying to tell, that's what should drive the chart that you use. Okay?
Can I see the stacked bar chart one more time?
Yeah.
The previous one. The previous
Oh.
slide.
The ugly one?
No, I just
I don't like
it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, just a little bit of my preference showing in there. The reason I don't try to use these primary or secondary colors too often is I don't feel the need to make everything that colorful. The point, I try to get the message across more than the artistic approach. Okay. Remember how we talked about histograms? You saw that as a vertical histogram, right? Wherever it is, somewhere down here. There. That's a vertical histogram. This is essentially, bars going up and down, right? I like to look at what are called population pyramids. As a sociologist, I examine demography a lot. In fact, this is a dashboard that I created. Y'all are welcome to check it out. It's on my personal Tableau dashboard profile. But this looks at the distribution of population by males and females for any country in the world. Any country in the world. So who wants to pick a country?
Australia.
Australia. It's funny, everyone always picks an A, no matter how many times I do this. The first country always starts with an A. Australia. Look at that. This is very different than what we see in other parts of the developing world, as well as in the United States and other Western categories. They have started to really see population or birth rates decline. Birth rates have declined. What you see, though, is that they have, at the 0 to 4 age range, a majority male. But then come 20 years later on, and it's still there. Come 20 more years, and it's still there. 20 more, and it's flipped. Females are the majority. Keep going up 20 more years, females are a wider majority, right? Come on up a few more decades, and females are 2/3 of the older
That's
population.
like the baby boomer generation, right?
So you're talking about this big hump right here?
Yeah.
Rotini? No.
Yeah.
No. These are called echo boomers. Have you heard that term before?
No.
Okay, ready? I want y'all to, let's create an echo. Rotini, when I say boomer, you say boomer about a second after I do, okay? Ready?
Okay.
Boomer.
Boomer.
Boom.
Okay, I was the original boomer, which means I'm up here in this 70, 80 range, right?
Uh-huh.
You're the echo boomer because you're down here now. You're down here. So not to get too graphic, right? After World War II, and we're experiencing this in the U.S. I'll just pull it up for you so you can see. After World War II, look at that. That is pure echo boom, right there. You learned something. You learned a new phrase that has nothing to do with visualization tonight.
I did.
This is echo boom. Yeah. Look at echo boom. Like all the baby boomers are aging up. These are their kids. Did anybody listen to the Modal American that I posted on Canvas? Oh, you've got to listen to it now. I'm not going to make you. But what is the mode? This is good prep for your test. What is the mode?
Go ahead, Laura Beth.
Take the clicker
I
off.
love watching the unmute fight over here. Yeah, go ahead. What is the mode?
The most frequent.
Most frequent, right? So, based on this simple, and y'all might not call this simple, I think it's simple. This simple distribution of data, the most frequent case by age category and gender is what? And I'm going to highlight a few just so you can see, okay? 25 to 29, 11.5 million, 12.1 million, right? 11.2 and 10.6. So the mode in terms of gender and age alone, who are they
The echo boom.
in America? Huh? What did you say, Lexi?
29.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I said the 25 through 29, the echo boomers.
The 25 to 29 echo boomer, what gender?
Female.
Nope.
Well, you didn't click on the males. I don't know the number.
It's right there on the screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
So
I see.
males, 12,161,000, right? 12,161,000. We don't see that, and the same tooltip. This is called a tooltip. It pops up. The same tooltip goes for both sides, right? See that? It's just male versus female. 12,161,000. Nowhere else do we have 12 million anyone in this distribution for America. So based on just age and gender alone, the modal American is
Kind of scary.
I'm going to take offense to that, y'all. I am not the modal American. I am not the modal American. I am in this range, 35 to 39. But the modal American, what we mean by that is the most frequent in our data set is a 25 to 29-year-old male in America. However, when you listen to that show, when you listen to that podcast, they use many more categories like education, marital status, where they live, urban, rural, suburban, right? When you take all of those factors into play, the modal American is not an echo boomer. They're not a baby boomer either. They're in the valley. Because Generation Xers, no offense to anybody that's Generation X, Generation Xers, males in particular, did not achieve education attainment like the females did in Gen X. There are fewer male Gen Xers that have a college degree, but I'm sorry, there's fewer. I meant there's more instances of white men who don't have a college degree that are married, that live in the suburbs. Those categories, when you look at all of the potential combinations of those categories, gender, education, marital status, income, and where they live, the valley, the Gen Xers, even though they're not anywhere near the highest number of humans in America, they are the most, I would say, most, what's the word I'm trying to think of, y'all? Most representative, like of their own like kind of categorizations, combinations of categories. So it's really, please, I gave you the ending away, but there are a few surprises in that podcast, so I highly recommend you listen to it. It's fantastic. So anyway, this, y'all gotta keep me on track. This is what we call a horizontal histogram, right? You see this, how it ranges, it's continuous, right? It goes up. I love population pyramids. So I created this because the census stopped creating them. Afghanistan has been in the news lately. That's their population pyramid. Yeah,
I was not
that's their
expecting.
population. You weren't expecting that. I would. Life expectancy in a war-torn country is always very low, and birth rates are usually pretty high. Other countries, anyone wants to see?
Bosnia.
Bosnia. Okay. Herzegovina. There you go. Yeah. Plateaus.
Whoa.
Plateaus. What about China? You know, China had a one-child rule for a long time, right? They've since started to relax it. And you can tell when policies change in China, right? Anyway, we can talk about that all night. This is not sociology, but yet there you go. You've got some sociology in you. All right, box and whisker plots. Box and whisker plots. You do know, right? We've talked about that a little bit already, haven't we? With confidence intervals. And so box and whisker plots are kind of the reverse. So box and whisker plots look at the distribution of continuous data, right? Like ACT scores by gender. And the middle line, the middle line is the median. The middle line is the median. Up here is the 75th percentile. The bottom of the top of the box is the 75th percentile. The bottom of the box is the 25th percentile. And so the range between the bottom and the top is the 50th. Basically, it's called the interquartile range. It's the middle 50%. The very, very, very bottom is the minimum. The very, very, very top is the max. You may have outliers on either side that might just be little data points, you know, kind of standing out there by themselves. But the way you read this is, again, you kind of have to look to see, is there overlap? And look at that. At this one institution, there's overlap. There's not a lot of differences between ACT scores for males and females. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, let's get a little simpler. Line charts. This is one of the easier ways to show trend analysis. A lot of people use the default bar chart to show trend analysis, but in terms of real estate and looking at space on a page, keeping it simple, creating a lot of meaningful, like, you know, uses of charts, line charts actually tell you the answer a lot quicker. Bar charts, you kind of have to look at the whole bar. Here, we're just looking at several points, right? But again, we talked about manipulating data, right? If my boss asks me, hey, what's the difference between, this is male and female, what's the difference between male and female ACT scores over time? Well, if I showed him this, he might think that there's a big difference in that they're both going down a lot. Well, they're really not going down a lot. I mean, actually a point maybe on average, less than that for males. But if I showed him this, he'd probably feel a little bit like, okay, well, we see a little bit of decline, but overall we're not shooting up, shooting down, right? We're not seeing any big changes. I tend to use the range itself as the axis. So if the range for GPA is 0 to 4.0, that's my axis. That helps people's frame of mind understand that what we're looking at has that range and that these data points fall somewhere within it. If I showed someone this and I didn't tell them it was ACT scores, they may think that the actual range of the data is 20 to 24.5, right? but we know that's not true. It's 0 or 7 to 36 or whatever the minimum is. Scatter plots are very effective, but they're also, I like to call them teardrops on a bed sheet sometimes. That, they make me cry a little bit, because what do I necessarily know about any of these dots aside from where they fall on the X and Y axis? It may not be that meaningful, right? And so typically we have to also include some sort of trend line, which Excel does very quickly, that actually tells you if there's a relationship between high school GPA and ACT score. Have y'all heard about the debate between those two? Which one's more predictive of student success, high school GPA or ACT? High school GPA. I'm just going to go ahead and give it away. High school GPA is a longitudinal measure. ACT scores are one moment in time. Yep. If you don't sleep well the night before, or you just don't take a standardized test well because of the time frame, the pressure, all those things, that we found that all of that contributes. And standardized test scores tend to be written in a way that different demographic groups have trouble understanding kind of what's expected, right? And so it's not communicated effectively across all groups. So anyway, long story short, we're going to talk a lot later on in this class about what this value right here means, this R squared value. So if you don't know right now, don't worry about it, okay? We're going to talk about linear patterns and linear relationships, but just know now that scatter plots are one way that we try to show those types of relationships. All right, and now what I want you to do is tell yourself immediately, this is not what you should do, okay? Okay. Sometimes people want to combine multiple measures on one chart. Okay, do you see this? This is the average ACT score on the left, the blue line. This is the average high school GPA on the right, the orange line. These two axes do not match up. Do you see that? If we had 0 to 4.0 and 7 to 36, that might be a little bit more of a meaningful axis. But because Excel automatically formats the axis to where they're similar, I don't get anything out of this chart. But you can use a dual axis for multiple measures. And I'll show you an example of how I do that with finance data. One second to find it. Here it is. Okay. So normally whenever I use a dual axis, I make sure that whatever I'm signifying the data value with is different than what I'm signifying the main values with. So what I mean by that is if I'm using bar charts to show revenues and expenses, I'm going to use a dot or a scatter dot or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use like a simple shape to show the enrollment, the full-time equivalent enrollment. So now what you see is this is meaningful. You see it go up, a little down, 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 a little down. You can kind of view the FTE across the chart. But the main thing I'm trying to show people here is that our overall enrollment's gone down. But yet, look at that. Look at our revenue and expenses. It's continued to rise over time. Does that make sense, y'all? Now, if we look at a specific institution, with this example, we've got an institution that's been in some financial distress in my system. Normally, if you look at your checkbook, you want to have more expenses or more revenue coming into your household.
Definitely revenue.
Definitely revenue. What do you see with this institution as an example for the last 3 years?
That's actually a significant jump in the difference.
Yeah. They had very little financial oversight, no one telling them to stop spending before we took over in FY20. So they've joined our system, and so you're welcome to also come back to this one in 5 years. I know everyone's going to remember. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for 5 years. I get to look at that one institution, see how much better they've done because Eric Atchison. No, I'm joking.
Definitely bucket list item.
Yeah, make sure you leave like, a significant social event because you have to do this, right? But no, I'm serious. Like, so this is using a dual axis, right? The FTE enrollment. It doesn't look anything like the bar charts for revenue and expenditures. It's easier for people to take that in. My CFO loves this because she's like, okay, I can use it, I can see it, I can explain it to people. Okay. All right, here we go. This is what I call lanyard. I added this one a little last minute, but I figured if you are writing a report and you've got multiple types of categorical analyses that are meaningful, instead of having those multiple pie charts that break out any number of things, right, all on one page, taking up a lot of space and making people look at things differently every time. So here we've got all the students at one of our institutions, right? Gender, race, residence, level, status. You might not think that looks that bad. Actually, everybody give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Do you like it or not? You got to have an opinion, Kara.
I don't feel horrified by it.
Okay.
Me neither.
I mean, I feel kind of neutral about it. I feel like I can wade through it.
Exactly. It's not too much data.
I don't feel excited though.
Okay. What if this was what if this was in the executive summary? This takes up a lot of space, right? And it's also a lot of text, and you have to kind of look at the legend, and you got to look at the numbers. A sunburst chart helps us better understand those multiple categorical proportions by putting them all together in one sun. Like imagine like one big circle, but instead of having multiple pies, you're going to have segments of that circle that are all evenly spaced, but each segment is going to have proportional differences. And so when I tell you this sunburst chart idea, when I showed it to my boss, he looked at me and said, I want this on page 2 of our system fact book, which is essentially like the system statistical profile for all of our campuses. What it's really helpful with is if you have one single focus population, one group, like all students, right? Or for y'all, like all staff, or your colleagues in this program, right? If y'all were trying to describe that one group with multiple different types of measures, you can do it very quickly in a sunburst chart. So here, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pie charts, I see status and I go right to it. I see level and I go right to it. Residence, race, and gender.
I like it. Visually,
Thank you.
For me. I like it.
Y'all don't have to butter me up or anything.
Yeah, I
And I'll
mean,
be honest.
it's
Yeah.
a little bit it's going to take me a minute to understand the differences because now the pie adds up to 500%. Is that right?
No. Each of these segments is 100%. So what you have to kind of tell people is that this is the breakdown of all students across 5 different categories. So 55% of our students are undergraduate students, 27% are y'all, right? Grad students. 18% are me, high school students. I'm joking. So there's, again, knowing your, okay, so this is actually a good time to tell you, know your audience. If you don't know your audience, and you hand them this and they aren't ready to kind of take it all in, like Lord Beth said, it could be a flop. It might be safer just to put all 5 of these on a page, multiple pages. Okay. Are y'all cool if we take 10? Okay, when we come back, we're gonna play around with charts in Excel. Okay. I'll see y'all back here at 1/2 past. All right. Thumbs up. Cool. Let's go out to Excel. All right, so we already did the histogram, right? Don't need to do that one again. I'm gonna move y'all. There we go. Okay. So let's remind myself of what we're doing. Why don't we work our way back? Sunburst, okay? Sunburst chart. Essentially, for a sunburst chart, what you need to do is you need to first and foremost summarize your data. Sunburst chart is not like a histogram where you just select the column and you tell it to make it. It is one of those where you have to kind of do a quick summary of your information first. So as you can see, kind of in the far left, top left here, I've already got my data done. Remember how we talked about pivot tables, right? In the first week or so of class? Highly recommend if you want to do a sunburst chart, use your data, create a pivot table. That way you've got all of your, counts by gender, right? And then you can copy that over somewhere else and then do a count by institution. There we go. And there it is. And then copy that over. All you have to do then is create the label. So institution, gender, highlight all of it, and then insert all charts is this little pull down arrow down here at the bottom. And sunburst. Oops. Oh, those are whole numbers. Sorry. You have to create percentages, which again is just another step, but nonetheless, it doesn't take long. So 58, F4. Has anybody discovered F4 yet? F4 puts a $ in front of the column and the row. And that way, when I move this down, it's basically holding tight to that plus. So I4 plus I5. It's the way formulas work, right? It always goes up against the number that you're wanting it to do. So we're actually dividing 3609 divided by the sum of 3609 and 2527. Now, when we pull it down, it's 2527 divided by the sum of 3609 and 2527. Okay, makes sense? So then, the sum of these two is 6136, right? 6136. The sum of this one is also 6136. So even though these are distributed a little differently, the total sum is the same. So all I have to do is keep bringing down the formula, and it's going to divide I6 by the sum of those two, and I7 divided by the sum of those two, right? It's all the same. Again, it's all the same focused population. So you don't have to waste your time summing both of those and then dividing by it. Now that we've got our proportions, we can just move those over a little bit. Move this over here just to make it easy. Insert all charts, sunburst. Usually it does it a little bit better. Yeah, no, we're good there. Maybe this is why, because I didn't have them labeled. Anyhow, there it is. Yeah, I didn't have it labeled correctly. So if we only have two measures, institution 1 and 2, gender, male and female. I'm going to make the text bigger so y'all can see it a little bit easier. Okay. Now, all we need to do is right click on the outer ring hit Format Data Labels, and then over here you see category name and value. Click on value, and it adds the percentile, 66 and 34, 59 and 41. I normally separate it not by a comma, but by a new line. And that's how we get it. If you want to make the color differences specific to the area itself, then you can just click on the area you want to change the color to. Click on the area you want to change the color to again, and changes everything. So that's just the two categories that we had earlier. Here's the data for all of the ones that I showed you on the chart. Again, highlight it, all charts. And Sunburst may show up or it may not. But under all charts, it's there. And there it is. How's that look, y'all? Pretty easy?
Yeah, really easy.
Cool. All right. Okay. Now, let's go backwards again, just to remind myself which one we did. Oh gosh, combinations. Yeah, I'm not going to do that one. I'll show you how to do it, but only because I don't really want to show you. Yeah, thanks, Lord Beth. So here, what we've done is we've created a pivot table, and you remember for each institution, right? We have the average GPA, and to get the average, you have to click on the sum of values area, and then change the value field settings to average, and then you can basically copy that out. And if we take, actually, let's take it off the institution, because we're going to not break it up by institution. Here we go, just total average GPA. And then we're going to get the average ACT score. And do the sum of values again, average, and bring it over as well. So the way we can do this is simply select it. Now that we've got our data separated, go to Insert, and we can go to Line Chart, and there we go. Now, it actually kind of, sort of makes sense here, right? But the GPA is really hard to read because it's somewhere between 0 and 5, as it should be. And ACT is somewhere between 20 and 25. All you have to do is click on the blue line for GPA, right-click, and Format Data Series. Actually, I'm sorry, change series chart type. Change series chart type. And notice that it says Custom Combination, and we want ACT on the secondary axis. ACT on the secondary axis. And when we hit OK, all of a sudden our secondary axis shows up, and our meaningful secondary axis would be somewhere between 7 and 36, right? So we changed the minimum to 7, the maximum to 36. And our GPA is only showing a range of 3.47 to 3.56. Well, we know what the meaningful range would be there is 0 to 4. And thus you can kind of tell. I will tell you, if you're going to use a combination chart, at least have the decency to make it easier for people to read. So one thing I do is I'll click on the axis over here and change the label on the axis to the color of the line that it matches up with, and vice versa. So now is that a little bit more meaningful? Does that help you read it a little bit easier? I know it's not perfect, but trust me, there's only a couple of ways of making it right, in my opinion. Okay, so that's combination charts. Then, going back again, scatter plots. All right, scatter plots. Using our main sheet data, here's our high school GPA and our ACT score. Highlight both columns and insert under the little dots scatter plot. And oh man, that's a lot, right? That's a lot. So what we see is, there we go, now I'm fixing it. I want to take off the sheet name overall, it doesn't matter. The X values are the high school GPA, right? The Y values are ACT scores. We have a lot of these. So actually, you know what? I'm going to only do this because it is so hard to read. I'm just going to do it for one institution. We'll duplicate the data over here, and now we'll insert a scatter plot for institution 2. It's a little bit easier to read, but still a heck of a lot of points, right? Heck of a lot of points. So making sense of this can be difficult, but remember how I told you one way to do that is actually to add a trend line. We can kind of tell that data are grouped down here and less grouped up here, right? We can also tell that data are less grouped down here as we get higher on the GPA and more grouped up here. So
realistically, when would I be using a scatter chart? Because I don't really like how it looks, and I'm not sure I would know how to read it really clearly.
It's not one that people technically read really clearly, but yet, but yet it is, and what people want to see is relationships, and really what I would say is if you're going to use a scatter plot, don't use it with thousands of data points. Use it with maybe up to 100, depending on what you're looking at. Again, we're looking at thousands of data points here. But notice our trend line. You might see it. I'm going to try to make it a little bit bigger. And then, yes, make it black. There it is. It stands out a little bit easier there. So notice we've got this trend line that actually looks like it goes higher as the GPA goes higher, right? Which means that as your GPA goes up, your ACT score tends to go up, right? That's how you interpret it. If you right click on the trend line and hit format trend line, notice that we've got a linear trend, which is typically what we want to see. But also notice the display R squared value and display equation. I did both of those before to help make this a little bit easier to understand. You don't have to necessarily be able to interpret that today, but what that means is there is a linear relationship, and high school GPA explains 30% of the variance within ACT score. And again, we're going to get back to that later on, but just wanted to introduce it to you now. Okay, so again, scatter plots are good as long as they're readable, meaningful, but definitely want to make sure that you have the ability to make sense of it. I know some people will color code a scatter plot for males or females, and like for example here, and there will be 2 different colors. So you can kind of see if males are grouped on the lower end or upper end, or females are grouped on the lower end or upper end. That makes it a little bit easier to read, but it's not the most simple. Line charts are simple. I mean, we've actually already done a line chart, right? Those are simply taking, for example, our averages, right? All you have to do is just select one, insert, and make a line chart. And I don't know why it thinks it's a percent, but hey, we'll work with it. Right click on the data, or right click on the line and hit select data, and then edit the axis and select the years, right? So our years are there. and then edit our value and make sure we've got our ACT score. And then I'm not exactly sure what's going on with our axis. Oh, that's why. Yeah, it should be 36 and 7. And it should not show as a percent. So let this be a lesson to you. Excel does some funny things sometimes. To change the axis from a percent to what we want, a whole number, you click number and change it to number. And then we come back and we want to make sure that this is not, I don't know, sorry y'all, I don't know exactly what happened there, but hopefully, yeah, that's odd. Apologize. Typically, if you're trying to demonstrate anything live, it's going to get messed up, right? So forget that one. Forget that one. Instead, let's try to insert a line chart for GPA. Look at that. It works for GPA until I know what I did. All right, here we go. The chart itself, I clicked on, I don't know if you saw this, but when I clicked on line chart, I clicked on the 100% stacked line instead of the individual line with markers. So you're welcome to laugh. We all make mistakes. And that's my one for the night, or probably one for the hour. So there's a simple line chart. Again, right click, select data. Make sure we edit our axis to get our years. And then we can add the data labels. Notice that the data labels show up on the line. It's really hard to read that. So right click and format the data labels, and I usually put them above or below. What drives if I put them above or below is, do I have another line on the chart where these might interact, these labels might interact? If so, I put them above, and the line below, I put the labels below that line. And there's our years again. There it is. Okay. So that's the line chart. Thankfully, figured it out. Next, box and whisker plots. Box and whisker plots. So this is another, you may have noticed, there's two different ways that we create charts, right? We either summarize the data, like in a pivot table, and then insert the chart that goes along with it, or we use the raw data and we highlight a column and thus, create whatever, the histogram, right, or the scatter plot. And so it's important to know which one to use to create a specific analysis. So box and whisker is one of those where you have to select the data that you're trying to analyze. And then under all charts, box and whisker plots. Not sure what happened. Did I lose y'all? Okay, good. I had to minimize your faces for just a second. Excel is a little squirrely right now. While that's working, I will tell you, stacked bar, pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Original columns versus horizontal, also pretty easy. If we need to go through it, we can. Looks like I'm gonna have to restart. Apologies for that, y'all. Excel has to tell me sometimes to slow down. I tend to work really quickly, but that's again why we record these lectures, right? There we go. Cool. All right, so again, ACT score. What we want to do first, and this is probably what sent it into a tailspin, we want to sort our data for box and whisker plots. So custom sort, first we're going to sort by gender. And that's all, I think all we need. So if we highlight both of them now, hopefully, see if it works. If I kill it again, well, we'll be done with it. It looks like I might kill it. Yeah, let's not do that. Everybody okay with that? Okay, looks like I've already killed it. Just making it even think about doing it, it said no. So while, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Is this going to be on the exam or this just for the homework?
Everything up until this week is considered on the exam, or I actually have a slide for you.
And do you know how many
Oh.
questions? Of course, you know. I was going to ask you how many questions are on this. Oh, you got it right there. Never mind.
Yeah, I promised y'all we would talk about it more next week or this week. Okay, so this exam covers chapters 1, 2, 4, and 5. And someone made mention in the early course evaluation that we didn't seem to be following like directly along with the book. And I'll tell you why. The book is a little bit complicated. The chapters are written in such a way that he kind of goes in and out of different topics. And I thought it would probably be more straightforward just to tell you what you need to know in this class, rather than, you know, hypothesize on Jane's superbrain and some guy that's trying to hit on her at the end of every chapter. But yet we have talked about measures of central tendency, right? Data visualization, standard deviation, all those types of things in the first couple of weeks. There are multiple choice and fill in the blank. The fill in the blank is going to be asking you about calculations that you're going to be expected to do. So, for example, if I gave you 20 numbers and asked you to calculate the average out to 1 decimal point, that's what you would do in the test, right? You would enter that number in the fill in the blank. There's only 35 questions, but I'm giving you 3 hours. 3 hours. 3 hours is plenty of time. Next week, when we come back together, I'll ask you, did you need the full 3 hours? Last year,
Yeah,
in
we
previous
did.
classes, what's that?
I said, yes, we need 3 hours, just in case.
You think that? You think last year and the years before, my students have all said it was nice to know we had 3 hours, but they generally finished pretty quickly, a little bit quicker than that. And as a reminder, this test is worth 105 points. There's no like freebie. It's just simply that the number of questions that I wanted to ask to get at your knowledge and skills for this section totaled 105 points. But what that also means is that if you miss one, you can still get 100, right? Or more, depending on which one you miss. So it's not free points, but it's not detrimental if you miss it, right? Because the A in this class is the grade distribution that I outlined in the syllabus, which does not go above 100 by any means, right? It's all the same distribution. So, give me one sec. I'm back. Okay, we're here. Let's just play around for a little bit. I'm going to create a much smaller data set, okay, just so we can play around box and whisker. Because I do want to show you how to make it work. There we go. This is, yeah, just a couple, maybe 100 or so. All right. So under charts, again, all charts, box and whisker. This is one box, right? One category. And notice how I told you earlier, I'll make it bigger for you, that if you have outliers, Excel kind of identifies those for you. Excel kind of identifies this for you, which is nice, but it may or may not be a real outlier. So just be aware. It's up to you to kind of figure that part out. Okay, does everybody see the box? What does the top of the box stand for?
Can you say that's your max?
The what?
Didn't you say that's the maximum? No, it's like the, I think that's what you said. Yeah.
Close. It is 75th percentile.
That's right.
So look at when I hover over it, you see the value says 20. That's the 75th percentile. The bottom of the box is the 25th percentile.
Wait, so what's the top line?
The very, very, very top line.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were asking about.
Yeah,
Oh,
me
no, it's at the
too.
top of the box. Sorry, top of
Okay.
the box. Top of the box. Kind of like top of the rock if you go to New York City, Rockefeller Center, right? The box itself. So here's the box. 75th percentile, 25th percentile, median is the line in the middle. There we go. And then the X, we haven't talked about that. We'll come back to it in a second. The top line here, if we didn't have these two outliers, there's one, apparently, student that got a 28. There's another student that got a 27. But they're considered outliers. Technically, 28 is the max, right? That's the max. That's the fourth quartile, right? And then the min the min ACT score is actually a 13. So again, if you want to double check, always double check. Equal min ACT, then 13. Cool. So here's the thing though, you can't do all of these functions. Oops. You can't do all these functions and create this chart from these functions. It doesn't work. You have to use your raw data to create the box and whisker plot. Now I said this X is right here, right? What is that X? It's actually the average. Go ahead, Rotman.
I was gonna say, isn't that the mean? But you said average, isn't it the same thing?
Same thing. Yep. Same thing. Yep. So it's the mean, it's the average. What it means when you see it here, guess what? The average is higher than the median, which means there's a little bit of skewness towards the higher range of ACT scores, right? If the distribution was symmetrical, right, like our bell curve, remember that? If it was symmetrical, the average score would be the median score. They would be equal. But because we have more ACT scores that are higher than the median and then lower than the median, the average actually is influenced by that, and it's higher than the median score. So it looks like the average is 18.5, right? And the median is probably about 18, right at 18. I would have to guess. Yeah, right there. So 18. So sorry I kind of killed Excel twice, but just so you know, it doesn't really like thousands and thousands of data points, just trying to create a box and whisker plot. So let me see if I can, real quick. Don't think it's gonna work. Yeah. What we need to do is put them side by side, I think, and go back here and look. Goodness gracious. Got a lot going on here. There it is, that's ours. I may have deleted it, but nonetheless, you see how to make a box and whisker plot, right? Pretty easy. Just find the continuous data, like a histogram, and then know how to interpret it. Know how to interpret it. Let me show you an example of a box and whisker plot that I did for work. Not really for work, but for a professional association. If I can. Here it is. All right. It's for so I'm the treasurer of one of the state professional associations, and I looked at the distribution of salaries for people in my profession because we do salary studies, and I may not be able to find it actually. I don't know why, but if I find it, I'll show you. Not that one. I do a lot with salaries, by the way. Does anybody work with salaries within their organization? No, it's kind of a touchy subject, right? They're a public. What's that?
Wendy said that too. She said when doing surveys, people are more likely to answer the other questions, and that's why they usually put the salary last.
Right, right. So here's the data. Look at all these people that work in my profession, in my state. Salary, position, 4-year, area, institution, all that kind of stuff. So one of our institutions, it was trying to hire somebody. They're trying to hire an employee. And so my colleague reached out to me and said, hey, do you happen to have salary data? And I said, yeah, I've got salaries for every employee in the 7 institution system, more than 12,000 people. I've got all the salary data. I didn't have it for the state, but some states are very transparent with public employee data. And so I can actually go out there and find any employee of any university or college, as long as it's a public one, and I know their salary. So I put all this together to show where this institution, ASUBB, is the blue line, right? That's their previous person in this job. That's what they were paying them. They were paying them about $39,000. The 4-year average for this type of role is around 47,000 or so. But this is a 2-year institution, right? So ASUBB is a community college. So then the 2-year, as you can see, the average is about 30, maybe 44,000. There it is. So average at the 4-year, about 51. Average for the 2-year, again, about 44. So then we looked at all public and then within the ASU system, because it was one of those things where we had to kind of look at it across the way. And I very quickly put together this table, which may or may not tell y'all a lot. But look at what the box and whisker plot tells us. It tells me that. Huh? Go ahead, Roger.
No, I don't want to cut you off. You can go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was just wondering how you have multiple plots, like multiple boxes from your data. I was just trying to understand it.
That's how I did it. So remember how earlier, if we did male versus female, I'd have to create separate columns for males and females. This is the example. I went into the data sheet. I created the actual values for each salary within each category. So ASU system, all public institutions, right? The role of the analyst at all public institutions. And then the next one's going to be a 2-year analyst, and then the next one is 4-year analyst. And so that's how you kind of have to set it up.
Okay, so you separated it.
Yeah, I separate. Yep, that's what I alluded to earlier, but I didn't want to take the time to do that because I was going to show y'all here, because this is already done. But look at that. I mean, let me show you this. Like, again, giving this to the chancellor, to the president of that institution, well, you can see the range, right? That's kind of nice. average, 25th percentile, median, 75th percentile. It tells you a lot of interesting stuff. Like Laura Beth said earlier, you can look at it for a while and figure it out, right? Or you can come right down here and say, oh my gosh, ASU BB is below the average in every category. So guess what they did when they hired their new person? Her name's Katie Brown, by the way. Her boss's name is Katie Vaughn. So I get those two mixed up all the time. When they hired Katie Brown, they hired her at 45,000. Data is powerful, y'all. Data is powerful. So this is just one example of one way to do that. Okay. I think, oh gosh, yes. Remember how I told you on test weeks, exam weeks, you will not have two assignments. You'll only have one, right? Only have one. And we are only about 10 minutes till the end of the designated course time. So I want to talk through this. So you only have one assignment this week. It's using data as well. But I gotta tell you, I don't know if I've told you this or not, but not you don't need to know. I mean, I don't know. You can know whatever you want to know about me. I'm kind of an open book. But I do believe it's important to know some things about people that you learn from. I love, I think that may be it. We'll see. Dang, okay. There you go. I'll be able to find it. I love public art. I love art. My wife and I went up to Rhode Island, Maine, and New Hampshire. And the first thing we did when we flew into Boston was we went to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And so one of our passions is actually finding public art where we live in our state. And so we're from Mississippi. And so this is one of the things that kind of brought us together was public art. So in both states, we have gone around and documented public art everywhere. Okay, so just know if you ever want to talk about art, I'm all about it.
I like it. I love art. I love it.
Yeah, I like it too. It was really sad when we announced that we've transitioned to Little Rock, but a lot of people came with us. We still update the Mississippi one when we can. But one of the things I like about it is that art is. Well, let me say, one of the things I don't like about art, do you want to know what I don't like about art?
What?
Historically, it's been very much a segregated profession.
Yeah.
Okay? It's very much underrepresented. If you look at auctions of fine art, historical art, medieval art, all those things, very little diversity in terms of art. Public art is for the masses. Anybody can do this, right? Now, opportunities come to those with more resources and more time and more, the ability to take off work if they work or et cetera. But honestly, you don't need hours to do that, right?
Not that, but some art can be very time consuming. Like you said, it depends on the amount of time, resources you have. It can take hours, days, months, years.
So, if you can read the caption for this one, I don't know if you can, but it says where we met, where we married. I did this for my wife right before we got married, a couple of nights before our wedding. This is the corner that I met her at a St. Patrick's Day parade. And so this is actually a park, or like the perimeter of a very small park in Jackson, downtown Jackson. We met on this corner. We got married in that park. The reason there are 3 of these symbols. Do y'all know what those are?
Yeah, lucky.
Yeah, shamrocks. Lucky, yeah. So there are 3 shamrocks there. Because my best friend, the guy I lived with during grad school and still like, I guess married to as a bromance, he introduced me to her. They went to high school together, and she happened to be at the parade. So you might be wondering why they're red. This is a St. Patrick's Day parade, right? Everybody's wearing what color?
Green.
Green.
Yeah.
Well, my name is,
Eric, right?
there you go. Negative points if you get that wrong. No, my name is Eric. I don't know if I've ever told y'all my wife's name. Her name is Delaney. And the guy who introduced us, my best friend and her high school classmate, his name is Ryan. So why are the shamrocks red?
Red Robin? I don't know.
We did not eat burgers that day. I don't think we ate at all that day. I think we're drinking our meal.
Trash.
What's that?
I said y'all was I have to say the appropriate word. What, trash?
No, that's
It
not
was
what
your initials.
Who said that?
Me,
Laura.
Beth.
Ryan. Yeah, Ryan, Eric, and Delaney. The very first photo that I had with my future wife had Ryan, me in the middle, and Delaney on the right. And so anyway, all that to say, public art to me is amazing. I love art. I absolutely am just, always interested in learning more. For this lab assignment, I have pulled the data set that has all of the works that are archived or cataloged for the Metropolitan Museum of Art out of New York. There are plenty of things to learn from this data set. You don't have to use Excel. You don't have to use one. You can choose your own adventure. Use SPSS or Excel, whatever you feel most comfortable with. What I want you to do first is a little bit of data management. You're going to find artists in the data set that do not have a gender or what they call a begin date. A begin date, maybe a birth date, right? If they don't have either of those, take them out. We want to look at artists by their gender, right? And we want to see their age. So I'm going to ask you to also add a new column to identify which artists are still alive. They don't have an end date. Go ahead and break the news to you, okay? Create column charts that count the number of works by males and females. Column meaning vertical bar chart, right? Create a 100% stacked bar chart to show the proportion of works by males and females by artists who are alive versus artists who are dead. Okay, see where we're going with this? Then create a histogram based on the number of artists that are in the Met by birth year. I want to see the distribution. How many artists are, were born, were basically born, in the 1990s, in the 2000s, in the 1960s, right? I want you to format each chart so it's pleasing to the eye with a relevant title and legend. Scale, doesn't matter. It's all depending on what you think is good or bad. And then finally, this is your choose your own adventure for the week. I want you to make a bad chart with these data. Remember how I showed you Wayner's Dirty Dozen, that article talking about bad charts? It's really a stretch sometimes to force ourselves to screw up. But by doing so, we learn what it means to screw up, right? So make a really bad chart. Make it very not meaningful. Make it unpleasing to the eye. And tell us, kind of what you've learned from that experience. Because I promise you, you might see someone else say that, oh, I made this fantastic chart, and it's going to look just like your bad chart one day, right? So speaking of charts, this is a really handy handout. I included it on Canvas, and we're right at time. So real quick, if you're trying to remember a number, I honestly just tell people the number. If the most important thing is the graduation rate of our class, boom, show them the number. Otherwise, if you want to compare it to other numbers, you can use things like we talked about tonight, pie charts, bar charts, etc. If we're comparing things, column charts, pyramids, like population pyramids, right? or what they call a slope graph, where a line is connected, comparing like maybe 5 years, like the data from 5 years ago to the data from this year, right? I use dumbbell charts similarly to also show comparisons, and it is, here we go. This is a very complex chart also. These are for highly data literate subject matter experts in retention at our institution. They are the ones that are watching every little piece of movement. And so look at these dumbbell charts, right? It shows trends over time for any type of demographic, number of remedial courses where they live, high school GPA, ACT, estimated family contribution, just as an example of a dumbbell chart. And again, you can pick on any of these filters and they change everything. So feel free to go out and take a look. Then, if we're showing survey responses, you can do a horizontal stacked bar chart. That actually is a pretty good way of showing like proportional responses, like how many people said that they agreed with the statement versus disagreed, right? Parts of a whole, pie chart, stacked bar, tree map. Tree maps are very hard sometimes when you have a lot of categories. And then I don't want you to think about open-ended data right now. That's qualitative. We're going to come back to that at the very end. Trends, right? Looking at Sankey, I showed you one of those, showing flow. And then scatter plots. Something changes when something else changes, right? When high school GPA goes up, what happens to ACT scores? Can't hear y'all.
They also go up.
Kara, how did you remember that?
It was that lovely trend line.
It was a scatter plot of the trend line. It's amazing. It's amazing, right? It's all right. It's all up in here. Okay, so y'all please enjoy this week. This is a little different, right? We're going to get more into the statistical analysis of things after this test. But let me know if you have any questions about the assignment. I really hope that y'all have enjoyed tonight a little bit. It's a little different, kind of fun to get a little creative every once in a while. And I try to make good on what you recommend, what you find to be helpful. Was that breakout discussion helpful for you to frame your understanding before we went into the depths of visualizations? Was that helpful just to talk to each other?
I think it's nice just to hear other people's voices and connect with everybody.
Cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was actually pretty impressed with what was shared. So it definitely builds that rapport. So if we have questions on homework or content from the book, it definitely kind of lets us identify who we could talk to.
Cool. Cool. Any other feedback? Okay. All right, y'all. Again, sorry to keep you over a couple of minutes. I'm going to stay here. If you have any questions, feel free to stick around. But if not, have a great night.
All right. Thanks. Tonight was very informative. I enjoyed class, and thanks for everybody that attended as well. I had the time.